So I finally made a video about my universal build technique that I posted a while back to help people out, because it seems to be a popular subject on Gamesalad when it comes to universal builds. So I made a video here so I can actually explain it, because I think what I had written was or seemed complicated, or I just made it seem complicated. This should make it a lot easier. So basically what the universal build does is it allows you to build a game, and I build using the iPad size because I think using the iPad as a starting point makes it a lot easier to do this. You can do it from any of them, but iPad is really the best way to go. And as soon as this starts up here, I'll show you what it does. So the first scene here is actually my splash screen, and this is where I actually set everything up. And as you can see, it's iPad size up here, iPad landscape, and everything's where it should be. And if you change it to say iPhone 5 landscape using stretch, you know, it does stretch out, but this is not what mine does. When you refresh it, it detects the new camera size. It detects the iPhone 5 display size, and it resets everything, so everything still looks good, and you got circles. And it doesn't matter what you pick. You can do iPhone 6 landscape, and that pretty much looks the same anyway, but if you reset it, it actually does set things up a little bit better. You can't really tell it from the iPhone 5 and 6 because they pretty much have the same aspect ratio. And let's go down to something like Kindle Fire, and that actually looks pretty decent too. Let's see, let's try a MacBook. Now obviously this is off because it's round, or it's not round. You can see it's perfect again, and it won't matter what you pick. You can even pick the small, like the iPhone landscape or the legacy, basically iPhone 4 or lower. And see, it still fits perfect. So what is happening? Well, I'm not going to explain it in here. I'm going to actually close that, and I'm going to start a new one. I'm going to show you from scratch. So I always start with the iPhone or iPad landscape, and the initial scene is where everything gets set up at. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to make an actor, and I'm just going to call it cam size. Call it whatever you want, it doesn't matter. And I like to set it off the screen. Mine is 20 and 16, 16. That's just the way I set it up. You can do any way you want. And then I'm going to position it, and it just appears down here in the corner. And to do this, I need to access the device display size, so we're going to have to open up a or unlock this actor on the scene. And some devices, especially mostly Android, has a problem detecting the display size in the beginning right now. Maybe it's a bug in Gamesalad, I don't know. But the easy workaround is just to use, you can use a change attribute, and that'll work mostly for iOS, but on Android it may miss detecting the cam size. So I would recommend using a constrain, or you can even put a change attribute and put it in a loop, but the constrain will work. And you're going to need 2 of those and a change attribute. But before I do that, I need 2 real attributes. You can also use an integer, but the real attribute will get it right down to the decimal point. And I'm just going to call this cam size and offset. And then we'll go back to the actor down here, And for the first one, I'm going to do cam size, and I'm going to look at what I'm going to do here is it's going to detect the device that it's playing on size and compare that to the size that we built it in, which is iPad, and it's going to create a new camera width. I guess what I should have showed first, let's go back here for a minute. If I go into one of my levels, and you can see this is an iPad, and you can see the camera size here around the corner, which is 1024 by 768. And what we're wanting to do is I want to be able to fit this into an iPhone 5, for instance, or any other thing, but say iPhone 5 for now, which has a resolution of 1136 by 640. So 1136 by 640 would be a little shorter, but it would be wider. So what I want to do is I want to change the aspect ratio of this so it's actually the same as the iPhone 5, and that's just really going to make it wider. And you can see I actually have my background a little wider, that way as the camera does get wider, you'll still see the whole background. You won't see a big black area over here. And because this is a scrolling platformer, it doesn't really matter. But it will work in anything. It can be a single scene, and I'll show you that too. So, and that's what this is going to do. This is going to detect that new size, and it's going to feed it to this attribute cam size, because I want to know how big to make this. And you know what? I'm going to make this scene a little bigger just so you can see. It won't make any difference. And right now, so you can see the camera size there. And let's go back to game. Where am I at? I guess I just go here. So for cam size, we want it to check some things out. So we're going to go to device, screen size, and width. And then we're going to say times that by 768. And then we want to divide that by height. And I'm going to actually put these, not there, right here. I'm going to put this in a bracket. That seems to work better for some reason. I'm not really good with math. How I figured it up, I really don't know. But I did. And this will actually get it. This will get the new cam size. And for the offset, and the offset is what we're going to use to rearrange a few actors on the scene, mostly the HUD stuff. So this is nothing more than game cam size minus 1024, which is the iPad size. So we're basically just getting the new difference. What's the difference between the iPad and the new one? And the new size. And if we're doing the iPhone 5, this will actually come up with, I believe it was 1363.2 or something like that. So it would actually change the camera to a 1363 by 2 times 768. So 1363 times 768 is exactly the same thing as 1136 by 640. And the change attribute, all we need here is it's going to actually change the current scene's camera size width, and all we need to change is the width, and that's going to be to the game cam size, and that's it. And if we run this, nothing's really going to happen because you can't see. So we need to put something on there. Actually, we're not going to put anything on here because this is my splash screen, and that's where I actually detect that, because I only want to do this one time, and then I want to actually change the scene to the next scene. And I'm going to put a display text in here too with a logo so you can see that. I'll just put BBEnk. And here I'm just going to put it at let's see, 384. And here I'm going to put it at 512 plus, actually let's do it the way I'm doing it now. I'm going to change this to game cam size divided by 2, which is always going to be the center of the screen. Let's do it by scene. Let's make this about 60. You can see it. So now if we run it, actually, you know what? I'm gonna that'd be fine. And you can see it's in the center because it's iPad, nothing changed. And there's no next scene. But if we change it to iPhone 5, it went off, but that's okay because we need to change it to stretch, and then we hit reset, and you can see it's back in the center again, and it still looks right. It's got the right size. iPhone 6, it's not distorted, it's not changed around. It doesn't matter what you put it on, it's always in the center and it's always right. It's that easy. So that will actually be our setup. So now let's do let's set up a separate scene, and this will be the first scene in the game. And we need a background. Let's make it let's just call it sky, and let's do this. So the center would actually be 512, 384, width of 1024 by 768. Okay, and let's make the color blue. What's a good blue? I like that blue. Now I'm going to drag it on here, centered up, and now it's covering the whole screen. And if we just run it, nothing's really good's going to happen here. It's going to skip the first scene. Actually, I should have put that in a timer so you'd have a second to see it. So I'm going to put this in just a quick timer. Let's say 2 seconds. I don't need that really. And it'll just switch scenes. So you get this, and then it switches. But if we change it to say 5.5 landscape stretch, let's do it again. Looks good here, and it's okay here because it's right now it's still just using stretch because I didn't put anything on that scene to make it right. I need to make it so you can tell. You know what? Let me get an image. I don't even know if I have an image. Nah. We'll just call this a button. Let's give it a color. Let's see. Size is good. Let's make it something that can be seen easy. How about this is gray? There we go. Now I'm just going to go to the here. I'm going to put a button here. I'm going to put a button here. And these are perfectly square, 100 by 100. But you can see, and I had to start it from here because it's got to get the new cam size. Everything's fine in iPad. Everything's still squared. But if you go to landscape, you stretch. Now they're all stretched out. This one is right, but this one is wrong because we hadn't adjusted to put the camera thing in there yet. And that's real easy because this only needs one thing. And we can drag this down here again and stick it in. And we're going to go to, I'm just going to open it up. I probably don't even have to actually. Do a change attribute. Actually, you know what? I'm going to revert that and leave it as a prototype. And I'm just going to do cam size since this is mostly the one we're going to be using. We're going to change, nope. That's right, I do have to use a prototype because I'm going into the scene. Hope I'm not confusing everybody. So we got to go into current scene, camera, size, and width, and we're going to change it to game cam size. That's it. That's really all you need on every scene to make it work right. So now if we go here, this is good. This is good. We can change it to iPhone 5 landscape, stretch it. Now it's stretched here, but that's because we got to reset it. Everything's still centered, and everything is still square. Now, yeah, it doesn't fit. Now you can see now, this is actually 1024 by 768. That's how big it is. But the screen is now wider because we wanted the aspect ratio of an iPhone 5. So that's what you have to account for. And the biggest width I've seen is about 1366. So when you build your backgrounds, like I did here, I built it big enough to cover that area. So this whole piece here would actually fit on an iPhone 5. That's what's happening. All you're doing is adjusting the camera. Now to fix that background so it fits better, we can go back. And we can do it a couple of ways. I can just go in here and change the size, let's say to 1400, and put it at the center of 1700. Run it again. I'm going to change it to iPhone 5. Stretch, reset. And now it fits. Our button is still off, but this will fit, only because I made it wider. And if we wanted to, let's say you had a, let's say this background had a mountain in the middle, and you always want that mountain to be centered. Well, you can just come here and say, change attribute, sky, position, X, that's not an X, sky, position, X, to game, cam size, divided by 2. And I'm going to put a little display text in here so you can see the center. I'm going to put a line. Let's just make it dark so you can see it. That way you can see it's actually in the center. You can see it's centered here just like it should be on iPad. And on the iPhone 5, reset. And it's still centered. So everything is still right where it should be. But we got to take care of that control there. So for this, and I would normally have more than one button for each button, and most people probably would. So I'm just going to open this up, because the only one we need to move is this one, because it only gets wider to the right. And all of these will always stay right here in the corner like they should, but this one here, because it's where it's stationed at, when it gets wider, it just, you know, it's not in the right place anymore, obviously. So all we need to do here, and this is where offset comes in. So you can just button position X, and we're going to change its button position X. And I'm not sure if you have to do that anymore, but plus game offset. And for this, sometimes I've used a half, but it depends on what you're doing. But for this, we wanted to move the entire offset. And that offset is just the difference between the iPad and the iPhone 5's width with the new number. So the new number of camera size width is going to be 1363 minus 1024, which is, let's see, what did I say? 1363 minus 1024, so an offset of 339 pixels to the right. That's how much wider the camera got. So now if we actually run this, and remember, offset is still 0 if you're playing on an iPad, so nothing changes. And if we go to iPhone 5 landscape, stretch, and reset, everything's in the right place. And you can do the same thing with a pause button up here, you know, or, you know, if you have a score in the middle, let me do that too. I'm just going to throw a little display text in here for the score. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to put that at about 700 for the scene. And here we're going to actually put 512, because that's the, well, we don't have to because it's actually in the center. Score should always be in the center, so we just go cam size divided by 2. And if we run it again, you see it's in the center, it's on the iPad, everything's good. Landscape, stretch, reset, and everything's right where it should be. That's how it works. It's that easy. 2 attributes and then a little code. And remember, for each scene, if we wanted to add another scene like this, the only thing we have to do is drag this in. I like to put it, gosh, revert. We open it up, we put our little change attribute here, game, current scene, camera, size, width, 2, game, cam size, and that's it. So the next scene is now ready for Universal, and it will work on anything. It doesn't matter what size you pick. Like I say, you can go here, you can pick 720 HD, stretch, reset, and now it fits perfect. MacBook, centered, fits perfect. Gamesalad Arcade, centered, fits perfect. And you know, if Android decides to come out with, or iOS comes out with another crazy size in the future, which they probably will, you can just, you know, you can make up sizes, 623 by 1265, you know, odd size, but it won't matter because it'll still get it. Change it, hit reset, and that's a weird size. But our background's not, because the offset there was way higher than what it would be on any device. But as you can see, everything's still set up correctly. You would just have to prepare for it, and that's easy. We just make it, the background, you know, a little wider. I ain't gonna type it all in again, but you get the idea. But it would work with anything. And really, that's it. I don't know what else to show you. I did have some other things in the video, or in the original thread that I had, that talked about scene min and scene max. And those were just something I added because of my game here, because I actually have a I should have done that. Oops, no more. Because I have a level select, a scrolling level select. And because your levels can only move so far left and so far right, that's why I had a scene min and scene max. That thing actually tried to start. Come on. There we go. See, I have a level select here. And obviously it's, you know, 1024 by 768, but all my little, you know, tiles are in here for my level select, and it scrolls. So I needed to know where the end is, you know, and the beginning, but minus the half. Scene min would be right here in the center, and scene max would be the, you know, 4 camera places over, also in the middle right here. So what I did with those, and I'll show you, because it gets bigger and wider, and I guess I should have went back to yeah, see the scene, layers, background, level, camera. And remember, these things move, so they needed to know how far to move, you know, depending on the size of the game. And a lot of games, you know, if you don't have a scrolling level, you don't need this. This is the only place I even use it. And you can see here I've got scene max and scene min, and that's just so it knows how far to go. And this is the only place I actually used it, and a scene min right there. That's the only places. And that was just so it could scroll back and forth and get the right size. But this was actually a little more difficult than the rest of the game, because if the camera gets wider, then all these things are off, you know, in the wrong place. And it's easy to set the first ones up because we know where the center is, but as the camera gets wider, we have to get a new center. And it wasn't too hard to figure out, but I'll show you that too. Let me go to my main. And I got a lot of actors in here. Yeah, I got a lot. Let's see if I can find it. Anybody see it? It's called tile. There it is. So in here I have the offset tiles, because I had to make sure everything offset properly. And you can see I used, for the beginning, I just offset divided by 2, which was really easy. But on some of them I need to use 1.5 times 1.5. That was to get it centered correctly. And as I went down, you know, it went to 1.5 there, it's 2.5, and then 3.5 for the 4th one. So you just got to keep them, you know, it's a little bit of work, but in the end it's worth it, because you only have to build one game, and you can, you know, upload it to iOS, Android, Tizen, whatever the heck that is, Nook, you know, whoever, because it always works, including Mac and PC if we ever, you know, if that comes along. And it works with anything. As I, you know, this is a platformer, so that's even easier, because The only thing you really have to adjust on the platformers is the controls, because they just need, and it's only these three controls, you know, my pause button and my little timer over here, because anything below 512 is really just going to stay in the same place. But you just want to move these over so that they still look, you know, the orientation still looks right. But the background, all this stuff back here, I don't change any of that. Now as you can see here, you know, 1024 is right here, and you can only see this block. So if we actually run this, I have to get out of there, because remember, all my camera stuff is in my intro here. If I go here, I got it invisible on here. Normally I've gotten to where I don't make them invisible anymore. And I do my cam size, and usually I always try to put my cam size at the bottom. I don't know why I had it there, but actually I'm gonna move it back since it worked. But I always want it at this lowest layer, the lowest part. Normally I actually, for the other scenes, I actually create a thing called cam size, like that, and then I drag it in and just make it not move. That way it's at the very bottom, because I wanted it to do that first. And like you say, on the intro, that's where it gets the stuff. Now I've got this in a loop, and the only reason I put it in a loop because I did all of these before I realized that Android wasn't detecting it properly. So I put it in the loop to make sure it gets read over and over. Because once it's read and it goes to the next scene, that's it. All this is done. And it'll just keep going. And all these other scenes just have that one, you know, they just have the one little cam thing in it. If I go here, setup, and I've got it called setup here, but it's at the very bottom. And it only has, why do I have all these other ones? Scene. Oh, I was tracking scene min and scene max in this particular game. But this is the one you need the most, because you want to change your camera. And most of the time you're only going to need this one thing. And these, because I've got some specialty stuff, I made these. But most of the time it's just that. So if I run this, this will take a second. My computer's not the fastest, but it works very well. It gets it done. A mini Mac. If I'm going too fast or something, I've never actually made a video before. So now remember, the intro screen is now setting up the camera and all that good stuff. And if I play, everything looks right. Now you can see, you can only see to where the camera is. Now if I change it to iPhone 5 landscape, stretch, you can see it's all stretched out, but let's do a reset. And you can see it fits perfect. Hit play. It's perfect. Everything sets up. It's a little further apart, but it still fits. But you notice now you can see further because the camera got, you know, a little longer, so you can see further across. And that's why I have the bigger background. And the only thing I made bigger was the background, because the, you know, the buildings and stuff, they don't really matter, and it'll work perfect. And that's it. And even if I change it to something smaller, let's see, Gamesalad Arcade, then you can see that smashed it together. And remember, the only thing we're changing is the camera size. We're not really changing the artwork or the graphics or anything. It's just, it's the same ones that you built it with. You can see everything still fits perfect. Everything's in there. And it's pretty close to iPad looking size. You can see a little bit more, but it still works just Works great. And considering how many different resolutions there are, this is very handy. And it also works, you know, this is just like a Mario platformer, all this is. But I also have, uh-oh, did I just move something? Yes, I did. Why did I do that? Okay. No, I didn't. What did I delete something? What did I just do? Number 2, number 1. Scene 2. Start scene. I think I deleted. How did I do that? Let's see. Undo move. It don't matter. I ain't gonna save it anyway. Oh, somehow I got it down there. Now it's back. Wow. Okay. So, like I said, these are more like Mario type boards. But Steamer over here is actually an endless runner, like Moon Patrol, and it does all the same stuff. It'll resize and fit. You see the background is big, but the mountains don't really matter because they're going to scroll anyway. And that's it. And it's an endless runner. And my truck's upside down for a reason. And let's see. And here's interesting, because I haven't actually, this particular mini game, I don't actually use the cam thing in it, so it still stretches out. And because I'm using stretch to do the universal thing, it doesn't matter. To fix this one, I'm still going to fix it. I just got to rebuild this here because it doesn't look right if I can't move my controls without rebuilding that. But I'll do that eventually. And then, but it works well. Actually, probably works better that way. And then, of course, my third game is it's actually in portrait, but I had to build it sideways. It's actually like a Flappy Bird clone, but it's a mini game in here. It's also, you know, it's also endless. It only goes so far. It's just the way I build my endless runners. But this one actually gets longer to the right, so the only thing I have to do is move this stuff down. Everything has to move down a bit to take advantage, but it works really well. Still, it's just using the offset and the camera, and everything above can stay the same because it's still on the left hand side. And I could probably show you that better if I just went into let's see. I got a lot of junk on here. Let's see. Now this is a standalone version of the Martian Flappy Bird. Let me make that small. But it's actually in portrait. So in portrait, you use the same offset and everything's the same, except now you're just going to get taller. And as you can see, I made this a little bit taller. That way it fits. But I'm still using the same, you know, intro screen. I got my little cam set up. Oh, I don't. That's my sound for hibernate thing. What'd I do with it? It was probably underneath it. It's invisible. You can see I still set some stuff up here. Cam size. There's the screen size. You know, except I'm doing it, you know, height instead of width. So it's height first and then width for portrait. And then there's the offset. I just put a Y in there, and then it's the same exact same. And then you change the size. And then I'm using these, but I don't have. These are just something I added to play around with. But mostly it's just these two that you're usually going to worry about. And if you play this, you can see it looks, you know, it fits, everything's right. If you change it to iPhone 5 portrait, stretch, let's put it 100%, reset, everything's in the center, and you see, everything's right. I could probably bring that up a little bit, but it's fine. And if you wanted to go to iPhone 6 portrait, you can see everything's right. Everything works. Not a lot of portraits. Say Kindle Fire portrait. No problem. See, still fits, and everything works. And it works very well. And if you look on the scenes, I don't think I got a lot on these scenes. Let's see. I think that's just a, yeah, that's just my little hibernate rule. What do I do with my background? And like I say, cam always at the bottom. And as you can see, it's just one rule for the whole scene to make it work. One simple rule to make it all work. And that's it. And I hope that helped. I don't know if I left anything out. If I did, you can just ask questions and give it a shot. I'm trying to think. I want to make sure. Yeah, I think that's pretty much got it. Like I say, you can easily copy this, and it always has to run from the beginning because it's, you know, like I say, only the first scene, the intro, is actually detecting the actual size. And actually, I know why I did that now. When I was showing this earlier, because I had that scene min and scene max on here, it's because not all of my little scenes are not the same width, so that's why I'm checking it on every one, especially my train. My train level is actually bigger. It's actually a lot longer. Okay, I guess that will do it. Hope it helps. Later.